So my name is Kerry Harris. I'm below the line. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Jindabyne, the current member for Jindabyne, and I'm fortunate enough to hold the position of Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories in the current government. I am probably not your traditional politician. I haven't been a member of a political party my whole life. I wasn't a staffer. I'm not a unionist. I'm someone that's lived in regional Australia my whole life. Neither of my parents finished high school, and we were brought up with the motto "put up or shut up," which is how I ended up on local council. There's been a decision made about my local playground. At the time, I had a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old, and I was complaining about it, and my mum said, "Put up or shut up." So I got elected to council, and 4 years later, I became the local mayor. We had 9 declared natural disasters, which culminated obviously in the summer bushfires, which our entire region experienced. And then I was asked to think about running for the seat of Jindabyne. I was a Labor member, and I had visited numerous politicians in Sydney and Canberra to talk about disaster response and recovery, and I was going to say no because I thought my time would be better spent in my local community. Then my husband said, "What would your mother say?" So I've been lucky enough to be a local member now for 5 years, and over the last 5 years I've travelled hundreds of thousands of kilometres across this electorate. The boundaries are slightly changing in this electorate, but one thing that remains the same is the drive and passion of our local community to get things done. Over the last 3 years in government, we have done a range of things, including tax cuts for every taxpayer. We've legislated rounds 2 and 3. We've made medicines cheaper, and we're going to make them even cheaper again. We've made childcare more affordable. We've increased the rates of pay for childcare workers and aged care workers. There's been energy bill relief, and that will continue. There's been investment in small business, including in cyber security checks for small business, which is incredibly important in this day and age. There's more work to do, and I think working with the local community is a highlight of my position. But it means sometimes working across the levels of government and across political parties to get things done. That's the one thing that I do, is work across the aisle to make sure we can get results, whether I'm in opposition or in government. There's been some fantastic local infrastructure things that have happened since I've been a local member. We've increased Roads to Recovery, which is a local council road fund that every council across the country gets. Here in Jindabyne, it's an extra $6.6 million over the next funding period, bringing Roads to Recovery funding to over $15 million. This is about road grading and resealing in your local communities. The council determines those priority projects. We have worked to improve the Snowy Mountains Highway. There's a range of safety measures currently happening. It's $10 million that went on the Great Snowy's Walk. There's $1.5 million for the skate park here. We've upgraded the lights at JJ Connors Oval, and we're sealing the Clayton's car park because it's frequently in state of disrepair. There is more work to do though, and what you need is an active local member that's prepared to work with anyone to get things done, and that's something that I've demonstrated over the last 5 years. In opposition, I worked with the then government to get a $50 million commitment for water storage dam in the Jindabyne. At the time, it didn't quite meet the criteria, and when I explained that irrigation dams in our community are also town water supply, I was able to convince the then Deputy Prime Minister that this would be a good thing to fund in our community for an area that had been consistently dry and drought. So it's really important you have someone that's prepared to work across the aisle to get things done.
Press the button again.
All right, thank you. I'm John Escalario. I'm representing Emma Garland from the Greens. Emma apologises for not being here tonight due to a family health issue. That's very unfortunate, but I've agreed to stand as a proxy. Just tell you a little bit about it. First of all, let me thank you all for coming out tonight, because The other thing I'd like to do before I go forward is just to acknowledge that we are meeting amongst the Nargo people, and I extend my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. A little bit about Emma. She grew up in Bega. She's got a family dairy background, dairy farmers for several generations. And look, if I get in this woman, I'm going to ask Chris because she thinks she knows it better than I do. But Emma is a person who has a strong commitment to sustainable agriculture. She is very committed to building equality in our country. Is that me? Okay, good. I thought I discovered something new in my head. It's okay, guys. I'll continue. Oh, thank you. So, as I was saying, Emma is her passion is sustainable agriculture. She's opposed to environmental issues such as logging native forests. She's been very active in that area. She's also someone with strong commitment to inclusiveness in our social system. I also understand that she is now a hospitality worker, so she is someone who is really aware of the cost of living issues that are affecting many Australians who are on basic wages, and I think that's a really important aspect of what she can bring to this role is a lived experience of what it's like being someone who, and I don't know her age, and I don't commit any past, but someone within that early 30s, I assume, age group, because we do know that they are the age group who are really doing it very hard in terms of some of these really important things like basic shelter, accommodation, rent, those kind of issues. I'm really sorry that she couldn't be here tonight because I know she did a much better job than I would on this. About the Greens, I think I can probably tell you a little bit more about the Greens. We are essentially a party of social justice, and we look to, in all our policies, we look to have a positive impact across the entire of our community. So when I would really like people after this meeting to go back and have a look at our website, greens.org.au, and have a really good look at our policies, because they cover some really fundamental important issues that affect Australians right now. For example, cost of living. We have some very important, really good structural policies that will affect how things like housing, education, health have been managed in the past and how we can improve them. Things like how much you have to pay for mortgages, how much freedom banks have to manipulate those sort of things. Issues such as, is that it for me? I'm sure I'll say something more a bit later, but I hope I've intrigued you, and I hope you go and have a good look at our policies because they're really good.
Good day. My name is Wade Cox, educated at 4th Street Boys High. I joined the Army and I graduated from Johnston Cadet School and became a soldier and a Vietnam. I was wounded severely in action on the other side. Currently coordinator general of the Christian Churches of God, Roman Church, Okay. Is that better? Yeah. All right. I've worked as in the Army, reached the rank of Major. I've put together a cattle station down the road at Cogonumber between Braidwood and Puma. And I then bought the Union's cattle station when it came on the market with current 10 was sold. And basically I was a local Puma and Braidwood for the 10 years that we were there. I had a series of problems, and then I went to university. I got 3 degrees, and I became an academic in religious reason I'm running for politics is that we're in a very serious problem. I used to be in Army headquarters and I was in Defence headquarters. Our defence system is in utter chaos. We have a serious problem. War reserve was abolished years ago. We don't have it. We don't have the evidence to defend this country. We'll be defeated within 7 days because we've got 1 day's 50 cal ammunition and 7 days 30 cal ammunition, and that was 30 years ago, before they abolished the war reserve. That's how serious it is. Our industrial capacity has been totally destroyed by this global warming scam. I have written for 30 years on what causes global warming. It is an 1100-year cycle. It lasts 1100 years, goes for 50 cycles, 550 years, and collapses into a mini ice age. It then, at 550 years or 50 cycles, goes back into another global warming cycle. The last one was the medieval warm period. This is the modern ice age. The previous one was the Roman period and the dark ice age. It happens all the time. It's not caused by a cold. That's a crime that was put out by the globalists to destroy the military, industrial and manufacturing capacity of the Western people. And they did a good job, and our politicians did it, and they were paid to do it. And we have to put people in there that know what they're doing and prepared to take on the beauty party, the right wing and the left wing of the same party. We have to do something about it, and it's not only that, our living capacity is being destroyed, cost of living is going through the roof. If you haven't noticed, I have, will take down this funding, that is the fuel excise tax. We'll reduce that, we'll change the structure of faith and many other things. I'm sure you'll ask me many questions. Thank you.
Hello, Fraser Buchanan. I'm representing the Heart Party. The Heart Party is health, environment, accountability, rights and transparency. Very core things in our society that are lacking. Our rights have been diminished greatly over the last 20 years, and it's an ongoing thing. Health, as in health, we have a 60% chronic illness rate here in Australia. We have the highest cancer rates in the world here in Australia, and that's a major issue. Back in the 1980s, it was about 10% of chronic illness, and here we are today, it's 60%. Our party was founded in 2016 as the Reform Medical Options Party by Michael O'Neill, and that's the husband of Barbara O'Neill. If you've heard of Barbara O'Neill, she is the preeminent natural health practitioner that is running the world globally, famous. She's in the top 10 influencers in the world, with Joe Rogan, with her natural health, advocating natural health, getting away from the pharmaceutical cartels that are running the health system in this world. And if we were getting healthier, if the allopathic health system was working properly, we wouldn't have the 60% chronic illness. We've got to look at the cause. These guys, with their intentions, are all right. The left and right wing of the same bird, that's how we call it, because basically they deal with peripheral issues, but they're basically on the same party lines, and they are controlled by their global masters, who are the corporate entities that fund them, and they dictate policies. We had a discussion last night, and it was about gambling, and what are we going to do about gambling, and what are your positions on gambling. Christy said that it took 20 years to get tobacco companies to eliminate tobacco advertising. Well, it's 20 years, to convince those who are funding you that that you don't want to be a party to what they're doing. Well, it should be that if it's wrong, if it doesn't work, if it's harmful to your health, that's it. Bingo. No more advertising. Simple as that. And it's tragic what's going on with gambling. I mean, it wasn't too many years ago. I used to watch football, but you look on the television screen, you always see advertising in once a game, and it's just programming our children. And there's a lot of real big issues happening, global issues, as Wade has alluded to, which are quite real. Globalists are dictating what's going on in this world, and we need to push back on that. We need to have people who can stand up to that, and the Heart Party are about that. So we need independence. If you just vote for the same old, the left and the right, you'll get a few little band-aids here and there, but you won't get any fundamental change. You won't get core things rectified. So you need to have independence in there who are going to hold the balance of power and be able to manipulate proper outcomes to achieve things. We've got $1 trillion debt. 1985 it was $8 billion. Now it's $1 trillion. That debt is going to be handed to our kids and their kids to pay. And we're just borrowing more and more and more foreign money, paying massive interest. We should be generating our own money within this country and keeping our money within our country. Our superannuation, 70% of our superannuation, $4 trillion is heading out of the country to be invested in foreign companies. It's crazy. Anyway, thank you.
Good evening, Jindabyne. Pinch myself. I'm actually here. I've been banned from these events for the last couple of years, so it's a refreshing change. Let's fact check. Joanne, never knocked on my door, hadn't come visiting my business. I love the voter duck. Go and look at our website, check out the voter duck. And tax cuts are only useful if you make a profit, Christy. Unfortunately, most businesses don't make profits, they make livings. So promising tax cuts is pointless. Social justice, or is it socialism? That's the big question for the Greens. Wade Fraser. Fraser's a mate of mine, we've been mates for years, and it's a pleasure to meet Wade yesterday. Oh, I know what socialism is, John. I see the couple of councillors here, the mayor, sort of hiding at the back. He's very good at hiding. He's hiding from his responsibilities of managing our council. I was assaulted on Thursday night by the Labor councillors, Christie's friends. It's making the news. So I'm standing up in front of you, and some of you hate me. That's fine. Some of you love me. That's better. But you know what? I'm still here. And I'm here to tell you the facts and the truth. Whatever Sydney Morning Herald says, it's bullshit. We've got the fake news over here with Nathan from the Monero Post. We wouldn't know a fact if we tripped over it. I don't have to be polite when the Labor Party try to lie about me and create events to put me in jail again.
Could you stop grandstanding?
No, because I'm the candidate. I'm the candidate, and this is my 4 minutes. Thank you very much. If you don't like it, you're welcome to leave. That's how this works. It's called democracy. I don't even know who you are. So, we've had COVID, we've had lockdowns. We've got the most ridiculous backstory for the last 5 or 6 years. We have to change. We have to stop putting a red or a blue, red or blue, red or blue. And Greens is not even palatable. They belong in a salad. We need to put an independent in the election, into the electorate of Egan Monero. I didn't interrupt you. I like my vegetables, a little bit of balsamic vinegar and olive oil. We need to put an independent in, someone that's funny, someone that's cheeky, someone that's going to give you the story, the truth, the facts. It's a pleasure to see Ruben Rose here tonight. What a pleasure it was to meet Ruben and to become a friend with Reuben and Kate, share their story and us, our family, share our story with them. You won't meet a more genuine man. 53 years veterinary surgeon, and he gets treated like shit in the council by the Labor councillors, by some of these others. They do not respect knowledge. They do not respect hard work. They do not respect experience. They expect obsequious fealty. That was our word from the March meeting, wasn't it? I told you I'll keep you entertained. I'm here to give you the truth. You haven't broken me, you haven't beaten me, you haven't put me in jail. You made me learn the law, and apparently I'm good at it. I can only get better. You put me into Eden and Arrow, you'll get more truth. You'll get more road funding, you won't get double wide lines and more guardrails, you'll actually get some tarmac. If you go out to Jindabyne, where we're going to have these safety upgrades, we've got gutters and guardrails not overtaking lanes, and that's what we need. We need more truth.
What's his name? Oh, right. I don't know who he is.
Feedback.
To introduce him, not either.
The way that we got our questions was by asking our members what they wanted to hear from the candidates. So I make no apology for the questions being more of business orientation rather than foreign policy or defence or social science. I'll start up with the tax question. Running a small business is getting more complicated and more difficult. The increasing cost of financial and business compliance is significantly higher for small businesses. The impact on freight, postage, insurance and energy costs are disproportionately higher, and the impact of seasonal business is an order higher, especially after the fires, COVID weather and the economic downturn. As a candidate, what policies are offered to alleviate some of these ongoing hardships for regional small businesses?
Thanks, and I've been a small business owner for a really long time, so I'm feeling this just as much as you all are. We really are. We're a nation of small business. We've got, I think, about 2.5 million small businesses employing almost half of Australia's workers. So we have always backed small and family business. This is something particularly important around this area. We've got a number of policies that we've already announced that will alleviate some of these cost of doing business issues. So obviously we've all heard about the fuel excise, which we will have for the next 12 months, which will ease cost on not just small business but families. We've got the $1,200 tax offset obviously for lower to middle income earners that will kick in at the next, with your next tax return. We've got the $2,000 tax deduction obviously for new businesses. We really want to be seeing new businesses start up. It's very exciting. We love our entrepreneurs.
Okay, so as a Senate candidate, I can really empathise with the small business problems. My husband's a sole trader. He has a small motor repair shop in Coomera, Paris Equipment Repairs. He talks a lot, if you know him. And I just feel like we just really work to pay his tax. That's it. It feels like we don't pay him. We pay his tax, and I relate to the freight situation. The prices went sky high because he sells Rhino-Nomas and he has to get them freighted in, but they went really high like around COVID, but they never came back down again. They're still really high, and people just don't have the money to spend to kind of compensate for that level of extra cost that we have. So I would support tax breaks for small business owners, because I do really understand how hard you work and how it just feels like you don't get to pay yourself. Why would anyone bother doing that?
Thanks. In regards to small businesses, we've got the continuing $20,000 instant asset tax write-off. There are tax cuts for every taxing individual, regardless of whether you make a profit or not. You've got to pay income tax, so there's a tax cut for everyone. We've invested $60 million into cyber security because cyber security is becoming more and more important to small businesses. We've invested $2.8 million with the ACCC so that they can take on unfair contract terms for small to medium businesses. We have strengthened the franchising code of conduct so that businesses aren't being ripped off by multinationals. We are working now to make sure that fresh producers or farm producers aren't being ripped off under the mandatory supermarket code of conduct, and we've got our first court hearing happening now with the ACCC against Woolworths for unfair specials. But there's more work to do in the small business sector. We have put in place a range of energy bill rebates, but as I said, there's more to do in the space, including a national certification for Sparkies, which hopefully we can then extend out to other trades.
So, for the Greens, it's really, when you talk about taxes, first of all, let's say, yeah, we'll support the idea of concessions for small businesses. That's actually small business. Thank you. So, I was a small, so I was a small business owner for about 30 years, and I do understand those pressures everyone comes under. I would say that we have some really good ideas, good well-known policy papers for small businesses, such as subsidising solar power and batteries for people who run small businesses, which do save a lot of money in the cost of running a business. And I can only just point us to have a look at the more detail at the website, because I think I'm going to run out of time in any second. Thank you.
We've been taxed into oblivion. We've got $1 trillion debt paying for these parasites that we put into Parliament and the bureaucracy down in Canberra. There's one solution. Our bureaucrats are now our globalists, if you like, people, our oligarchy, who control our mineral resources and sell our resources overseas with impunity and no tax, have to be taxed. $15 a tonne is our party policy on taxing these people who are selling our wealth overseas. That's got to stop. We've got to reduce the fuel excise tax, because every small business and every person in Australia pays for having transportation. Everything you put in your mouth is transported and taxes are paid on it. With fuel excise, they use the fuel excise tax to put more bureaucrats into Canberra, and it's got to stop. And you won't do it with the Uni Party. You won't do it with the Liberals or the Labor. You have to put independents in there who will represent your interests.
Thanks, Ray. 1 minute. An important part of business is the cost of power, and the cost of power is outrageous. The cost of power should have come down by now. People who are suffering are the ones who have least, the low income earners, small business. They can't afford it. It's putting small businesses out of business. There's more businesses closing. Who did I talk to today? Yeah, a guy in Goulburn. He said there were 20 businesses that shut in Goulburn, small businesses in the Main Street area, and he's just shaking his head. So the cost, this transition to renewables is costing us big time. A lot of that money should be going into supporting small business. We shouldn't be getting rid of our coal-fired power stations or our gas supply at this time. It's crazy. We're funneling coal over to China. 80% of coal to China comes from Australia. We should be doing this gradually and not cruelling the low-income earners and small business. Thank you.
I'm going to fact check Wade. Air. doesn't get transported. We get air in our mouth for free. And Christy, you don't pay tax, you earn under $18,000 a year. So, I'm going to give you a tax lesson by the end of the night. Grumble, grumble. I've been in small business for 30 years. I've seen it all. I drove a truck 1,000 kilometres in the last 24 hours. I paid a lot of money in excise and fuel, $1 a kilometre. That's what that truck costs just to drive it around. We actually need to re-understand what population growth is doing to our country. We need to understand the drivers that are actually hurting our economy. It's demand, it's consumption, it's wanting things. We all want the highest standard of living. Not many of us are actually really understanding where the money comes from. Tax cuts are a false promise. You'll hear that all night.
Christy, you want to reply?
No.
So that was the question on small business, but when it comes to personal tax, it's generally accepted that living in a rural area has its benefits, but it comes at a higher cost of living and less choice for services, be it medical, tertiary education, food, fuel, banking. From a tax perspective, the policy idea of having tax rates for certain postcodes, regional postcodes, is a valid one. How would you balance that out if you were a candidate?
Tax education, you need to understand how it works. Your first $18,000, you don't pay tax. You can actually pay yourself travel allowance up to about $380 a night tax-free for every night that you are away from your home. We need to understand that we have a benefit of clearer air, cleaner water, less stress. We're not usually in traffic jams. We are generally healthier out here in the country. And we don't need as many medical services. But we have to revisualise what it is that we want. A lot of health comes from your brain and your gut, your diet. And you need to understand, you have to look after yourself. The first thing is get yourself out of the city. That's step one. It's diet, food, quality of life, less stress, don't watch council meetings. I mean, all those sort of things are what's going to drive your outcomes. Starting small businesses in regional areas is going to be tough unless you understand the market. The market is not really going to support you in a small country area. You need to serve the city from the country.
Andrew just indicated that the tax-free threshold is $18,000. Well, I'd like to see that raised, but I don't know about identifying particular postcodes to nominate it, but I think it should be raised to help the low income. They should have a higher tax-free threshold, maybe $40,000. They should also be able to access superannuation. And superannuation should be voluntary, so that it can help them get into the housing market.
Everyone is paying too much tax because of the bureaucracy and the way the system is run. We've said what we have to do. There are many more things that we have to reduce the costs for, so that our people, the lowest levels, get a decent break and compete properly, send their kids to the school, educate them properly. We have to clean the whole system. It's no longer just a matter of deciding whether we'll tax this or that, or reduce areas where you don't get a tax. We've got to cut the taxes properly and get rid of this $1 trillion debt and give our kids a chance to buy a house. That's how bad it is. And these people are playing with us. And our power is through the roof because they're playing with renewables. You finished?
Well, let's see what they like this one. Yes. Thank you. You go to it. So, look, there's a well-known saying, to every complex problem there's a simple solution, usually wrong. And I say that because taxation is very complex. It exists in a total economic environment. And just saying, for example, this postcode should be considered for this kind of taxation, and do that in isolation will create all sorts of inequities. So I think that rather than try and choose the cherry-pick postcodes, what we should be doing is looking at the entire tax structure and review the entire tax structure. That's what we really need to do. It's about time we get it. Not fiddle around the edges, which seems to be done all the time, and always ends up anyway in inequities where people fall through the cracks. But a really good thorough looking at it. There's so many things that are inequitable in our tax structure and in the kinds of tax.
It sounds like a great idea, but in reality it would be quite complex to put into place in terms of how it then impacts the community and the role and impacts of that. What we need to do though is be more effective in how we collect tax. Tax reform has been on the agenda for decades and decades, and no government has been able to institute anything since the GST. But it is really important that we do start to back small businesses. So as I said, $20,000 instant asset write-off, protecting them from cyber security, because that is a big issue. We've instituted now across the OECD a minimum tax standard, so a multinational has to pay the same level of tax wherever they're registered, which brings more money into the country. But it is really important that tax reform is on the books. Unfortunately, our media means that usually one scare campaign is run and governments walk away from tax reform. Fuel excise though is critically important because fuel excise goes towards road maintenance right across this country and road building. That's something I think we all want to keep and continue to do.
Okay, I'm not a tax expert, but I do think that rural people contribute something like 2/3 of what our economy is, and in return what we get not enough health facilities. We have people in rural areas that fundraise for their own medical equipment, which is not right. We contribute so much. Instead of having a tax break for certain postcodes, I think that they should just invest more in things like health and education for rural people.
We are taxed too much. I'll make two very quick comments. I think when I'm out and about, what people are saying to me is they want two things. They need some immediate relief because people are really hurting. So whilst we might say, look, it's a short-lived bit of a sugar hit, things like a $1,200 deduction at tax time really will help people that are struggling. But one of the other reasons that I'm standing is I believe that our communities deserve governments that look at long-term structural reform, and tax is one of them, and it's going to take a very brave government to do that. But I'm most certainly going to be putting up my hand to say, we are taxed in too many different areas. Someone said to me the other day, look, can't we just raise the GST at all and get rid of all these other taxes? And it's a little bit like everyone telling me that there's 50 solutions on how to fix the Brown Mountain. I think there will be a lot of consultation and a lot of deep reflection that governments need to do, but tax reform is definitely one of them, and bracket prep is something that we've said we'll take a look at.
Staffing is always nearly number one concern of local businesses. Full-time businesses struggle with competition because we've got some large employers, Snowy Hydro for instance. Seasonal businesses also have to struggle with bringing employees into the area, and it's not only because of housing. One solution that's been floated in the past could be addressed with more flexible visa conditions, modifying the 8-day rule for farming visas. Instead of just using farming, allow seasonal workers to use tourism businesses for those 88 days. It's been floated before in the past in other federal elections. How would you go about expediting that idea?
I just employed 3 French backpackers across the summer. I had another 3 in the spring period before that. We had a lot of conversations about how effective the program is. There are some challenges, but I would agree. I think we could broaden the scope of what qualifies for an 88-day visa working holiday. The problem really is our people, our young people, don't want to work anymore. I find it incredibly difficult to find locals. I mean, I've got some pretty crap work. It's monotonous, it's boring, and it's repetitive, but it's work. And at $30 an hour, you think there'd be people jumping at it. But no, I can only get backpackers who have a different driver, a different commitment. But building a caravan park, that idea didn't go very far. So we need to actually look at how to solve the problem. An 88-day visa still means we've got to find somewhere to put these people where they can stay.
Yes, I don't really know too much about this issue. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, but I do consider that during the COVID thing, when the government gave all the unemployed a double dip on their unemployment benefits for a prolonged period, made life quite comfortable for them. And since then, there seems to be a lot of people who are living the dream, just floating around, a lot of kids. And they don't seem to have much ambition to really be getting into work. The government would rather have them on the cheap. So I think there needs to be incentive for our kids to get up and going and get working. They should be remunerated properly. And as for people coming into the country and having visas, well, that's fine too. We need our economy to be turning over. But I don't support whole-scale immigration, which is happening at the moment with 1.5 million people coming in the last 2 years. I think that's way over the top and out of control and working against us. Thank you.
We're having massive immigration and it's not solving our employment problems at all. It's not, we're relying on people coming into this country with visas to work from other countries. The people we're bringing in as immigrants are not productive properly. It's not work we need to do. But we should try and get these immigrants who are coming in and actually working. The whole supply of permanent immigrants are not. We need to keep them here, but we need to sort out for immigrants on a permanent basis. We need to get rid of the ones that want to work.
Yeah, I think this is probably coming from the issue of being in a tourist area where, for example, in winter we just don't have enough people to fill jobs, and I think it's well worth looking at. I really do. The only thing I would say though is that we have to make sure that we're not creating second-class working conditions. In other words, that people who do work under these sort of arrangements have the same protections as any other person who is working. That would be my only concern. But certainly if it expanded workforce for people during seasonal periods, I think it's a very good idea.
There's been 3 reviews into the migration system which shows that the migration system is broken, and there was a visas issued by postcodes which really showed that when you do that there is adverse effects to other areas. The 88-day visa for agriculture probably does need to be re-looked at. There's also working visas that you can now extend out to 3 years if you go to remote Australia as well. But there is more work that needs to be done in the migration system. Those 3 reviews show that it is exploited frequently by organised criminal gangs for human trafficking. So there's work that has to be done in the migration system to make sure that we are limiting the number of visas. We put a bill into Parliament to cap student visas, and that was voted against. There is people coming into our country filling skilled positions, and those are the visas that we need to be looking at, and we also need to be looking at skill shortage areas, which includes construction trade, it includes a range of alpine jobs as well. So I think that it would be worth
lot of small businesses in our area, especially the ones that are reliant on tourism, that are really struggling to find people, and it's really affecting their bottom line. So I think, obviously, trafficking is awful and we'd like that to happen, but I think if it's managed properly and it will allow businesses to function better and to make some profit during that really good tourist season, then that would be a good thing.
You bet your bottom dollar this is an issue. It begs belief when we are in one of the busiest and most successful tourism areas in this country. This is where postcode matters. We are not in a postcode where we can get chefs, restaurant managers. I have clients spending thousands of dollars every year on migration agency fees to get workers in so they can continue to keep their doors open. The 88-day rule for the second and third times is something that I have committed verbally to tackling if I'm elected. It's really important for this area that we make sure everyone here that wants to run a business has people that they can employ to make sure they keep their doors open.
We'll mix it up a little bit now. There's been some advice that a nuclear power plant would make sense in the snowy mountains. How do you prioritise nuclear energy in the scheme of energy technologies?
Thank you, John Barilaro. Who remembers John Barilaro said, let's put a nuclear plant up in the snowy mountains? Because I remember. You know what? We've already got a nuclear power plant. It's the big yellow thing up above. I run a solar farm up in Sydney, so I've already got a nuclear power plant. Power word plant was a joke. Nuclear power is not scary. One of my good mates is building a nuclear battery. He's working over in South Australia and he's working on using a range of isotopes that the battery could last for 600 years, 1200 years if you use carbon-14 isotopes. We need to look at removing the prohibition on nuclear energy so that we can at least look at it as an option rather than just saying no. Because don't forget, all these battery-powered smoke detectors run on americium, which is actually worse than plutonium. So there's a lot of science underneath the facts and underneath the rhetoric or the bullshit. I don't oppose nuclear energy. I just understand the economics of a nuclear reactor using conventional fission is not going to happen.
We at the Hard Party, we don't rule out nuclear. We're looking for alternative energies. We're looking for the most efficient, and that's why we're sort of quite happy to continue with coal and gas at this point in time, because we don't believe that the emissions that are created by those are of significance to cause us to not use them at this point in time. We also recognise that there's a lot of technologies that have been brought to the fold over the eons and have been put to bed. And we think that there's a lot of capacity for other technologies to be brought to the fore. So we're open to all technologies, to consider them and to look at them and look at their safety profiles and efficiency, and we're after the most efficient. So we're not ruling anything in or anything out at this point in time.
Power shortage is a self-inflicted wound that was solved in China for what they've done with this industry. We don't need anything significant in terms of nuclear energy. We sit on massive amounts of uranium. We could have nuclear energy up and running for the long term. But we don't need to be in this situation because coal isn't causing global warming. It's a scam. You've been con and they've taken your money off you. And they are trying to sell you solar panels and windmills in the millions. And they have us spending trillions of dollars in infrastructure we don't need. What we need, if we put coal back in and get out of this Paris Agreement.
So, cost of living, that's an issue for you. Don't go nuclear because the cost of nuclear is insane. It's insanely high. All the modelling done by the Climate Council and anyone who actually knows anything about it will tell you it's a ridiculous idea. It is crazy. We have a sun up there, and I do work through in this space. We have a fusion reactor up there that's providing lots of energy free. Why would you want to tie yourself to a massive build which will blow out and cost you masses of money? It's an expensive, foolish idea. We have plenty of other ways of generating power and electricity. If you're worried about, for example, meeting your energy costs now, imagine what it's going to be like when you're forking out for the cost of building a nuclear reactor.
I actually agree with Andrew, which is quite strange. Economics just don't stack up. There is nowhere in the world where a small modular reactor is working. Every nuclear build that's happening across the world is now well and truly over budget and is taking decades and decades longer. The 7 sites that the Liberal Party said that they were going to do are all privately owned. Every jurisdiction has a ban on nuclear. There is a nuclear moratorium in Australia. No one knows if those nuclear reactors could actually plug into the grid, and the communities haven't been consulted anywhere across the country. To put one in the Snowy Mountains makes absolutely zero sense. We are known for our amazing landscape, and our farmers rely on that landscape, so why would we destroy it with a nuclear reactor? In Boyang in Victoria, for example, where I grew up, my dad worked at that coal plant there. If that was turned into a nuclear reactor, 200 gigalitres of water would need to be bought from local farmers to cool it, because you need more water to cool a nuclear reactor than you do a coal plant.
When I think about 100 years into the future, what will our country look like? I can't imagine that it does have nuclear. I think that we will come to better technologies for renewables, especially solar, and that will make them more efficient and more affordable. I think there are a lot of innovative solutions that probably haven't had money invested into them. I had a guy contact me just before I came here who's looking at night solar, and he's like a really fancy engineer kind of guy, and he had all these ideas. And I think there are so many people out there that do have these ideas, and we should be putting our funding into them and moving ahead with renewables, because I do think it's our future.
So yesterday morning, Christy and I were on an ABC Canberra debate. The question put to each of us was, this is a hypothetical. If you could, would you have a reactor here? My answer was normalising the conversation and opening this up to a proper adult conversation. Of course we can't have one here, but the question was hypothetical. My response to that was, it would be up to my community about what they want here, and that's exactly what you will get from me if I'm elected. If you do not want something here, I will fight really hard for you, but if you do, I will also fight really hard for you. We've identified 7 locations, and can I say, I'm in favour of a really good mix of energy. And to that point about it costs too much, well, everything costs too much and takes too long if you never start. No one ever speaks about how long Snowy 2.0 is over and how much that costs. Do you know why? Because it's a good idea and we need to get on with it. We need a good energy mix in this country.
Snowy Hydro. Do you support the ongoing investment in Snowy Hydro in the Snowy Mountains? Would you support Snowy 3.0 and 4.0? If not, what consideration would you give to the impact of the local economy?
Alright, I've landed with the microphone first, but I do think it's a little bit crazy that it started at 2 billion and now we're at 12 billion with no kind of idea of when this is going to be finished and how much it's going to cost in the end. So I think there has been a little bit of a failure there of how big this project was meant to be and maybe how it's been managed that I don't think a lot of people are really happy with. I would just like to see it finished and not costing another 10 million. I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, well, Snowy 2.0 was an announcement for Malcolm Turnbull to save his job, and there wasn't a lot of planning that went into it. And unfortunately, it's had an impact on some of our townships, which is not a good thing. Now that the project is underway, it absolutely needs to be finished. Pumped hydro should also provide a significant amount of energy into our country. It's something that can be turned on and off in about 4 seconds, which is a really great thing when you've got to add energy into the mix at short notice. So absolutely it needs to be finished. But we also want to see the benefits flow into our local communities and not take it out of our local communities.
No, I don't think we should go any further than Snow 2. I think it is largely an energy light element. It is not anywhere near the efficiency of a battery, and battery technology is evolving along. We'd be much better spending that money on battery technology and on things like electric cars being able to feed back into the grid, where we get a much more circular energy feed. I think that Snowy 2, with all respect to the great engineering that's going on, and there is some marvellous engineering going on, I think let's stop there, please. When I was in council, they told me 2 billion. I naively said, oh, what happens when it blows up to 4 billion? No, that was a very naive thing of me to say, because now, as I think has just been pointed out by Kerry, it's about 12 billion. That's a lot of tax dollars for something that's not going to come on for a hell of a long time, and will never be as switchable as the almost instantaneous switch on of the battery. That is, you know, for example, like Tesla batteries that are being built.
You know my position, we've been on, it is blowing out, it's not going to stop. We need to get coal-fired baseload power back in operation so that we can get our industry, our manufacturing organised and stop the pomp, stop the global warming scam we've been at, get rid of the guys that have got their hands in their pockets.
Yeah, I agree with Wade. I think it is a scam, and you know, $2 billion investment blown out to 12, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It could end up at 30 billion, and it's not going to be anywhere near as efficient as it was made out to be. It's another basket case, another big government basket case. It did the NBN, biggest infrastructure project since the Snowy, is what they said to the NBN. How beneficial has that been to us? It's just one thing after another. 2 wings of the same bird. It doesn't matter which side you put in, you're going to get the same. If you want change, you really have to vote for change. You've got to get, we have to put independents or small parties in. People are going to stand up and make this change. Because these guys are hamstrung to their party. So if they cross the floor, they get shoved under the back bench. So they've got a total line. So they can't do anything. They're hamstrung.
Pump hydro is one of my favourite topics. I did a whole lot of consultancy on pump hydro, some presentations in 2017. I like modular pump hydro far better than the scale that we see with Snow 2.0. It has actually been incredibly destructive to our community. They pay 120 days on their invoices. So most local businesses avoid Snowy Hydro and Snowy 2.0. It has pushed our rents up, buggering our roads, and it's created a lot of false economy. Council can't keep employees because they shoot off to Snowy 2.0 to get $45 an hour, sit on their bum and do nothing because the project is a mess. And then we won't get them back. Pump hydro is not 4 seconds, it's more like 4 minutes to turn it on and off. But a modular pump hydro where you have tanks at the top of the mountain and tanks at the bottom of the mountain, you don't lose the water. I did a lot of work in that space. Monero is ideally positioned to provide that, but you need to couple it with your wind and your solar So there are options, we just need to lower our expectations.
Yeah, I wouldn't support anything beyond Snowy 2.0. I guess as a lawyer in this area, what I've seen is a real pricing out of local goods in the market. I've got a couple of friends that said to me when this all kicked off, we were getting about $350 a week rent, now we're charging $1,100. It definitely skyrocketed rentals to the point where we've had people leave town because they can't afford to live here, and that's not something that I want to see continue. I guess when it's finished, I would like to see some follow-on benefits back to our communities. I know towns like Jindabyne feel like they have very much been left behind. We were built on snowy hydro, and I would like to see that legacy continue, but I don't feel like we're getting much benefit at the moment.
I don't think we've really addressed the second part of the question, and that is what would we do in terms of considering the local economy? After the first snowy hydro left, they left quite quickly, left no legacy behind, and there was a form of depression. And certainly talking to a lot of people, if snowy hydro 2 doesn't continue to snow 3 or number 4, it'll again go through a small depression in the area. How would you mitigate that?
Well, I would encourage industry, ancillary industry off that Snowy 2.0, like manufacturing for all a lot of their fabrication and their materials and all that sort of stuff. So I think that it should be able to establish businesses. I mean, look at Coomera. It evolved after through the Snowy 1.0, and it was a bigger, it was a thriving metropolis of people, and it obviously did go into a decline, but there was industry going on in Coomera for a long time after that, and I suppose that's all you can really do, or focus on the areas of tourism which this area has. But if a big project like that finishes, then there's obviously going to be an effect. You can't totally mitigate the effect, but you try and encourage industry as a result of it, so that they're not importing everything that they need, make it here.
I'd become the mayor and make our council become more business friendly. Our council scares businesses away with the most ridiculous requirements and DA processing. And I know some of that's a consequence of state government legislation, but we need to actually look at the longer term future. We are a cheaper place to live, we're a cheaper place to have a business, and that's why I'm here. We're a cheaper place to raise a family, out to the coast, out to the snow and out to Canberra. 4 hours to Sydney, and you can fly out of Canberra Airport to wherever the hell you want. We have a strategic location that we fail to take advantage of. So we need to encourage business to come here and allow people to have business on their farms. Luke Williamson has shown us that you can grow cattle on love grass and have berries, and then let people put their ash for their loved ones in the memorial garden in his farm. Diversify.
Lots of problems with this global warming system over the next 5 years. We're going to see what's global warming is. We're going to see escalate. It's got nothing to do with man-made emissions out of coal burning. It's a fact that the global warming system runs over 1,100 years. You get a global warming, it lasts for 550 years. It then goes into a mini ice age and lasts for another 550 years, and then goes up into another global warming cycle. did that in the beginning of the 10th century, the 1450, and then it went into a mini ice age. World sea levels dropped 10 feet, and it got colder, and in 1750 it was the coldest in 10,000 years. This time it's going up again, only it's going right up. You went to the
Really good question, and we're going to start planning now. We've got the Minister for Regional Development here, haven't we? And I'm sure, and look, I'll say Andrew too, but I thought your point about councils, they need to be involved in that plan. We actually need as a community to think about that because, let's be honest, we're not going to ameliorate all those impacts. But we may find that there are some great benefits. For example, I know for a fact that a lot of our local construction workers are being pulled away to Snowy, and it's hellish hard to get someone to render your house or to act as a carpenter. I mean, and that's true actually across the entire country with mining and other industry that is pulling construction workers out. So there are some potential gains, but you're quite right. We have to be thinking about this right now, and I do acknowledge that this, the thought you put into that. And thank you for raising it.
Diversification is going to be really important, I think. There's a concrete batching plan on Polo Flat Road because it was cheaper to set that up than freight things down to our area. So it's important that Snowy Hydro looks at some of the things that have been set up and see what projects that we can go on to. Tunnelling, engineering projects like these are going to happen right around the country. We're already doing a bunch of the segments right here in this community. There's no reason we can't keep doing those and continuing to tender the projects that are happening across New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland. We've just got to make sure we're competitive at that. And as Andrew said, and I'm weirdly agreeing with him again, it's cheaper to live here. It is actually cheaper to do business in some of our areas here. So there is no reason that we can't escalate what we've done here with Snowy Hydro and actually tender for other projects, because tunnelling projects are happening right across the country. We've got that concrete batching plant in Coomera, and we could probably do more of that.
I know that Snowy are already looking at some of these projects, so 2 comments from me. This is about engaging with your stakeholders, so whether or not they are community groups, whether or not it's council, whether or not it's chambers of commerce, this is the stuff where we need to be getting community consultation right to make sure that we can come up with a good plan. But I do know, I was just having a chat with the guys at the Easter Fair on the weekend from Snowy, and they are talking about partnering, and again that's something to is partnering with existing businesses that are already here to leverage from them, but they're talking about partnering with Challenge to set up a nursery, because we know that a lot of revegetation is going to need to be undertaken once the project is heading towards completion, and I think that's a really great idea.
Thank you. Insurance is becoming a large part of everybody's cost of living. Whether a business or a resident, premiums are increasing much faster than inflation. In more cases, people are having to weigh the cost of insurance versus other immediate needs, and in some cases, deciding not to insure. Would you support a national universal insurance scheme similar to Medicare, but only for property?
I'll be honest, I don't have a view on that. That's something I probably have to have a think about, other than I think the fact that all of our insurances have gone up. I mentioned that before, that a lot of people talk to me about really having to shop around, or perhaps stopping private health and not comprehensively insuring their car. That's a safety thing for me, I guess. But the best way to try and tackle this is to get inflation down.
Yeah, this is not something that I really have a strong opinion about, but I do feel really sorry for the people that live in areas that have been impacted by natural disasters like flooding and bushfires that can't get insurance for their house, and that's a really unfair situation to be in. And I think that we really need to look at that to fix that for those people, because it's not really fair.
Insurance is becoming more and more difficult across the world, particularly in areas that are disaster prone. So the government already has a reinsurance pool for strata towers in North Queensland, because a lot of those strata towers can no longer get insurance because of cyclone risk. So there is already a government reinsurance pool for strata in North Queensland. It's something I think that will have to be looked at down the line. Government insurance was a thing many, many years ago. GIO was a government insurance agency. Governments extracted themselves out of a whole range of public asset ownership, including telecom and a whole range of other things. I think now we are at a place in the world where we actually need to start rethinking about public assets and public ownership of things. Insurance is going to be one of those things we're going to have to continue the conversation on. There already is a government reinsurance pool in North Queensland. The likelihood is with more natural disasters that might have to be extended out. But there is a parliamentary inquiry that is currently happening around insurance.
Whenever there are really big costs, it's actually the government that ends up underwriting in some form or other. So I really think with insurance, we really should just be handing it over to a government, a body again, particularly on big issues like have been mentioned tonight. But I also feel that a lot of the insurance companies need to be looked at again, because it seems every time we look around, whether it be for health or whatever it may be, they've been raised. And so that actually makes it very difficult for people to have things like health insurance or to cover the contents of the house or whatever it may be. And there is that old saying, that insurance is an invitation to an argument at a later date. I think we really need to look into that and say, how well is this industry operating? How fair is it operating? Because if it can't underwrite the things that we need, well, maybe we do need to go to a government system again.
The problem is ethics. We allowed developers to take over, pay politicians, build on areas that should never have been built on. Now we're saying, oh dear, we can't insure these places when we should never have built there in the first place. We've got serious problems with our whole structure in terms of the insurance system will collapse because individuals make slimy claims which they shouldn't be making, and developers are building in the places they shouldn't build. We've got problems that we have to sort it out, and it's our politicians that aren't doing it. They caused the problem in the first place. We've got to deal with that and fix it.
I think that insurance companies are rorting the people, as they always do, and they're using this climate narrative, this climate emergency hysteria to do this, to take advantage of it. And we've had fires before. These fires that we had recently were definitely significant. But if you look at the real causes of those fires, the majority of those fires were lit. Arson is the biggest. The majority of fires are deliberately lit, and that's exactly what happened with these fires. They were lit all over the place. They were popping up. It wasn't lightning strikes and things like that. We are a sunburnt country, and we traditionally have been. We had mega fires coming through in the 50s from up here, that ran right through the coast, and took out a lot of property, very similar. So it's not all natural or man-induced, but the insurance companies are high profiteers and taking advantage of a false narrative.
I don't agree with it, because I don't believe in socialism. Any time that we ask government to take control of something, we lose out. Excise. Government puts excise on fuel to pay for roads. less than 30% of excise collected gets spent on drugs. The rest gets spent on bureaucracy and new ideas, new regulations. We changed the flood maps to allow people to build in flood zones. I bought land in Jindabyne, 1,100 metres above sea level, where I can't flood. There's no history of cyclones. You've got to make better choices. And I understand that people are pressured into what they can afford. But this comes back to our competence in our local government, who are in charge of a lot of the maps. We need better conversations with our communities about where you can live and where you shouldn't live. And if you're in Lismore and you got wiped out in a flood, don't rebuild. Move. It's brutal, but that's how the law of nature works.
Aged care is a complex issue due to the cost and regulations, but at the same time it's a requirement for our ageing population. Jindabyne is half the average of over 75-year-olds in our community than the national average, in part because of the lack of medical resources. What will you do to assist aged care coming to the area?
I could take a leaf out of Mike Kelly's book and give you another GP super clinic and call it an aged care super clinic. That didn't work very well, did it? We have basically handed over control of aged care to private enterprise in Snow because our council was not very good at running it. We have to have a hard conversation. We, as a council, can't really get into aged care. We can make land available, we can assist, and we can provide service support, but we can't run it because we don't know how to even fix potholes. We need competent businesses to actually run aged care facilities that have an economy of scale. Respect Aged Care, based out of Tasmania, have over $1.2 billion of property, aged care property under management. And we only had $15 million worth of Yolandi, and we couldn't even get that right. Yes, Jindabyne should have it, but where? We have to find space. It wasn't even contemplated in the activation precinct conversation as much as I'm in.
Look, I think that we should be trying to keep the elderly at home as much as possible. They do it in other countries. We seem to have this belief that you usher your parents into a nursing home, and our system is set up that way, unfortunately. We now have to have both parents working to pay the mortgage, and we need childcare, daycare and all this sort of stuff. It wasn't that many years ago that you only needed one parent to be working to pay the mortgage, and the mother could stay at home and bring up the children, and you could actually have your parents or grandparents staying in a granny flat. But now there's so much regulation on all of that. The ability to have secondary dwellings or granny flats, it makes it hard. And so it's all about ushering them away into a nursing home, and I find it quite unfortunate.
The Fifth Commandment requires you to honour your mother and your father in the days of your life. The promise is that your life will be long and land all the way back. That has been thrown in. My mother died 99 years and 4 months down the road from us. She lived with us till she was almost 99. We, my wife, tried to look after her as better than her own mother. And that's the solution to the old age system. But we have to help families to deal with it and keep their parents at home. And we have to force local governments to build proper aged care facilities and maintain them. And if they don't, they need to be kicked out under the powers of the minister. That's what needs to happen. These people don't do it because they're incompetent and they don't care. But the Fifth Commandment needs to be enforced.
So aged care has changed a lot over the years, and the age at which people enter what we think of as an aged care facility is a lot higher than once was. So people in their 70s, for example, like myself, we're probably not going to enter aged care until the late 80s, would be fairly typical. That means that when people are going through a period in which their skills, their capacities are failing them, they need to rely more on family and, importantly, community services. So I think that's one of the really important aspects of this issue, which we don't, in a minute, I can't go into it as much as I'd like to, but essentially I'd say we need more than funding support. We need to have people at home for as long as we can, and we need to have the backup of an aged care system, which I prefer to see government run, because anytime you bring the profit into those kind of things, the value, the quality, particularly of food and care, falls because it's a victim of people wanting money over people's
Aged care is becoming more complex and more people want to stay at home longer. So not this budget but the last one, we contributed additional dollars to have 24,100 extra home care places across the country. We contributed $1 million to the local council so that they could work with respect to keep aged care beds in Cooma, so we didn't lose aged care beds in Cooma. We've contributed $25 million to Bombala MPS to expand it so that they've got an acute aged care ward there now. But Jindabyne to get an aged care precinct, what will be required is a private provider to come in. But there are a range of capital grant funds for aged care providers so that they can set up in a community. But there are a range of funds that the federal government has working with local communities to increase the capacity for aged care beds, particularly those with high and complex needs. But what we are hearing more and more from the community is they want to stay at home for as long as possible, which is why extra home care packages is critical and we deliver them.
I think we need to make sure that we are training aged care workers as well as encouraging young people into that as a profession and making sure that when they do that they come back to rural areas so that we have them here. I think that granny flats are a great solution to this problem. It's really hard to put a granny flat in your backyard without there's a lot of red tape around it. It would also help with our housing supply issue because it would help us free up some housing if we moved our elderly parents into a granny flat. So we have one, just saying. So I think it's a really good idea, but it needs to be made cheaper because it is really expensive and there's a lot of red tape around it. And if that rolled out, imagine all the housing it would help with as well. So I think it's a good idea.
When I stood for pre-selection, I stood on 5 platforms and one of them was aged care. It's incredibly important to me. I was on the board briefly at Silly and Hudson and Cooma. A lot of my clients are elderly. About 20% of our population here is over the age of 65, and when I leave Cooma and I drive to Jindabyne, there's nothing. It's a disgrace. I don't want to see people leaving town. If you were born here and you grew up here, you had a business and you raised a family, you deserve to stay here if you want to stay in your home. I want to see a great suite of a mixed model package. Some people want to stay at home, some people want to go to care. We want to be able to say to people, it's your choice, and we'll be supporting you whatever choice you make. We know if you have to leave and say you live in Jindy but you have to go into care in Canberra or in Bombala, that's a 2-hour trip. That likely means that your family is not going to be able to see you as much. We know that that increases the rate of dementia, and that's just not something that I want to see for the older population in Edinburgh.
Last 4 question. Tourism in the Snowy Mountains is the largest regional product, and yet council struggles to provide for residents, let alone visitors. There has been a lot of suggestions ranging from a bed tax to taking a share of park fees to the allocation, to park fees, as well as a universal increase in the federal assistance grant. What would you do federally to support tourism?
As I said, I've been here for a really long time, and can I say, when I moved here in the 80s, the economy here was almost like a 4-month economy, and what I think we've done very well over the last 10 years It's largely due to organisations like Chambers of Commerce that partner with councils to make sure that we're creating opportunities for our businesses and for people that want to move here, to make sure that we become a little bit more of an all-year-round destination. If I'm elected, obviously, I live in this place. I want to see it thrive. I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to deal with all levels of government to make sure that we continue to grow on that all-year tourism round destination. What I would say, you briefly touched on the federal assistance grant. I'm very supportive of that returning to 1%. I think if councils were properly funded, we would see them be able to return to some of the core services that we associate that with.
If I was on the Senate, I would clearly support anything that would help our tourist industry. I am really impressed with how it's the mountain biking and everything has made this like an all-year-round tourist destination. And having someone who is from this area on the Senate to support that would be a good thing for you guys.
Tourism is critically important to the entire electorate. It's really important that we continue to fund the things that we know people come here for. So the $10 million for the Snowy Alpine Walk is incredibly important. There's been a range of caravan park upgrades that we've contributed to. There are 13 caravan parks across Edmonton area that have had direct contributions from the federal government for upgrades. Marketing is the critical one. So federally we fund Tourism Australia, the states fund Tourism New South Wales, and then they get down to, for example, Tourism Southern New South Wales. All of those organisations require additional funding. Councils have always had a role in tourism promotion. Some councils have pulled out of it, like Stone Narrow Council has. We've increased a whole range of council funds, but at the end of the day, it's a choice for what your local community funds and what your local council funds. It is up to them to explain why they've moved out of tourism marketing.
Tourism occurs not only on the level of politics, in the sense of what can the particular federal group or what can the state group provide, but largely it's about communities and what drives communities. Mountain biking, for example, that's come through community at its largely. And so I think as a representative, anyone who's a representative for you at the federal level needs to be aware of just how community-based tourism is and how important it is to have a regular communication and way of consulting with people who live in the particular area, because there will always be great ideas and new things that are required. So yes, it's great that we have all three levels of government involved in it, but really, ultimately, it's the communities and the great ideas that come out from them that really drives tourism.
Tourism has got two problems. Firstly, a lot of our government see instead of looking at their own country. There are many areas in Australia that not getting around to look at. And they're not. People are trying to stop us from working in national parks in this area. That's got to be stopped. As well as shooting brumbies and other things like that, which is not necessary. Now, also we've got to sort our own councils. I was on the council in Callaghan, and I can tell you as a fact that the people there, the landowners, were trying to stop the development of the road from Braidwood to Cooma. And it was established about 70 odd years ago as a developmental road to assist the tourism up here. But it was stopped by the council there. And I fought tooth and nail to get that road tarred. When I left council, not one piece of tar was put on that road.
tourism is obviously a major thing around here, as we have the Australian Alps here, and it draws thousands and thousands of people to the area. But I think I'm in support of some sort of a levy on the park fees coming in from the people who take advantage of this Alps that we have. People pay a lot for a lift ticket and all the rest of it. I think that to try and impose it upon the ratepayers is just over the top. The rates are obviously extremely high, and the bang for the buck is probably very low. So I don't think you can impose big tourism levies on the local people to support what's going on here. I think it needs to come from a park. If you have the opportunity to get a park levy happening to generate money, because obviously the demands on the public infrastructure would be very high, and it's got to be borne by those people who take advantage from it.
The best way to support tourism is to provide the best tourism experience, because rather than advertising in the telly, it's the tourist that's had a great time that tells his mates. Now, we are part of a wider tourism network. Oysters down the coast, mountains, mountain biking. Mountain biking is not going to save us, by the way. It's just something else to do. I would like to see a reduction in the park entry fee. I think it's our national park. It should be free. And what we're finding is the price of lift tickets are now so extreme, there's no money left to spend in town. You are being priced out of our own market, or you go to Japan. We need to provide a quality tourism experience, but the tourists are our advertisers when they go back home and say, oh, you've got a great time, you should go and have a go. Well, we have to be realistic in how we price ourselves. We also need to look at solving the employee crisis so that we can have rooms turned over, that we have cleaners and the cooks and the chefs, etc.
Fraser, just for context, we have 1.3 million visitors every year, not a couple of 100,000. I've got 7 quick-fire questions. Hands up for yes. Keep your hands down for a no. And then we've got a 3-minute summary. So I've got 7 questions. Do you support a dedicated, federally funded mental health program for regional and rural small business operators? Do you support a dedicated, federally funded mental health program for regional and rural small business operators? Thank you. Do you support subsidies for solar batteries? Do you support an urgent care for Jindabyne? Do you support an urgent care facility for Jindabyne? Urgent care. Yeah. Do you support the continued mandated use of cash as a legal tender everywhere? Just need banks to stay open. Correct. Do you support government ownership of a regional airline? Do you support an inquiry into digital voting? Digital voting using a digital a pencil and a piece of paper. Last one, tax code is in need for reform. Would you advocate for a reform and simplification of the tax code? Do you support the need for reform? Would you advocate for the reform and simplification of the tax code? Somebody get unanimity on tax and cash. We're coming to the last end of the evening. If we can have just a summary of yourselves, what we thought of the questions, any rebuttals that you want to make, so certainly keep it to 3 minutes, and then we'll have a couple of questions for the audience.
I thought it was a great occasion. We've got a bit of a feel for who we're going to vote for. And I thank you for your votes. on the top of the ballot paper. Number one, the universe has told you what we need to do. No more red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. Let's find something different. I'll make it interesting. I'll make it challenging for each side of the parliament. Whether the government would want the Eden Monero vote or the opposition would want the Eden Monero vote. They both have to bid for it. And we put our price on it. Do you remember when Andrew Wilkie was elected into Denison in Tasmania? Tony Abbott versus Gillard. Tony Abbott flew down and said, I'll give you a $1.2 billion hospital. And Wilkie said no. You remember Rob Oakeshott took 17 minutes to tell us who he was going to support. I'll do it in 10 seconds, promise. We need to change. It's a really simple thing. I think our illustrious mayor promised a time for change in his campaign and nothing has changed. Well, Big Lee, you know it has. I've made our council change. Our council is now interesting. We are going to become a new tourism council. People will come to watch our meetings. We're going to monetize it. We need change. And you need some city bugger in there who's going to explain how it works, can understand legislation and legislative intent, and actually read it, communicate it, assess the population's opinion, and if you say no, it's no. Not actually what I think. Much as people want to say that I'm destroying our council, the community is destroying our council because we've had enough of what it does. We need it changed. That's my mission, given to me by the community. I will take your mission into Canberra in Monero. And yes, I can be in Canberra and Cooma at nearly the same time. You can be in local government and federal parliament, the limitations are only applying to the state. It's a big opportunity. Who else would you choose? The question is, if not me, then who? If Indigo's going to vote for me now, he's a Labour guy at the back there. And if not now, then when? I first stood in 2013. I stood in most of the elections since. Nothing has really improved. Nothing has really changed. And here we are. Still talking to each other, sharing the ideas. We're still laughing about it, which is really refreshing. Australia is a great country for have a go. We need to put the have a go back into the common lexicon. We need to make our students feel like they have a future. Let's not burden them with climate doom and you can be a cat. We need to tell them that you can be whatever you want.
Look, I think we're at the crossroads. I think what's happening is a global agenda. There are global decisions that are running our country. We have the two wings of the same bird who sing to the hymn sheet that they're given. We've been bringing in mass surveillance, mass loss of rights and freedoms to express ourselves, bodily autonomy. We were forced to be vaccinated with a substance that hadn't been properly tested. We were put into a state of mandates and lockdowns and all this sort of stuff over a virus that has now been proven to have been a fabricated virus. You've got to go and look on the US website, US government website, and it explains how it was indoctrinated and fabricated and gain of function developed and released. It's all about bringing a global government control, new world order. They've been singing the same song for quite a while, Build Back Better, all this sort of stuff. All these governments are in cahoots, they're all in lockstep, they're following a narrative, and if we don't push back now, it's all over. They're getting surveilled all the time, they're putting cameras up, they're introducing, they want to bring in central banking digital currency, get rid of cash, they want to manipulate every decision you make, every transaction you make. They want to be able to put their finger in it and tell you what your party's going to do. Climate change is being used as a tool to introduce all this stuff. These guys are just singing to a hymn sheet. They're doing what they think is right. They think they're looking after their electorate, but it's not about that. It's not about the electorate. It's the big picture. It's the global picture, and we need to push back on it. We need to have people that stand up on it and say no way. We want bodily autonomy. We're not going to accept the surveillance. We're not going to accept the digital currency that's going to enslave everyone to a system like in China with social credit score, with carbon credit scores, all this sort of stuff that just inhibits our freedoms. We've had wonderful freedoms throughout our lives. We've been whisked away. We're just about gone. Agenda 2030 is banging on the door, and that's you'll own nothing and be happy is what the cash prize is for Agenda 2030. So by that time you won't have your own property ownership. All your title deeds have been taken out of paper titles, it's all gone digital, and the wording of the titles these days doesn't actually give you direct ownership. The government can apply your property, take your property off you, and that's what's going to happen. So it sounds like a big conspiracy. It is. It's real. It's happening. So we need to push back and stand up and fight for our sovereignty. World Health Organisation trying to control us. Thank you.
We have been taken over by the globals. Parliament is run by the globals, paid and directed by the World Economic Forum. Our key supporter is great reason, and he is behind the surveillance and he's still behind it as key. We've got really treason stems from the top in this country and this colony. We've got to do something about it. You've got to put somebody in with a fire that's telling you prepared to take this parliament off. And if you don't, there will be world war in the next 15 months. You will go into captivity if you're not prepared. And if you're not prepared for the fight, you're seriously aware. Anyway, the real structure is, thank you for the comments and questions. We could have done more because there is so much later past the quick question. We have to do something. We have to get together. We have to work out and we have to expose the nonsense going on in Canada. We have to get rid of this $1 trillion debt so our kids can survive. You owe it to your grandkids to work and fight. My father went to World War II. My great uncles, all the Nixons, went to World War I, got shot or killed, and they did it because this country mattered. And it doesn't seem to matter to a lot of our people. We've got to take them by the throat. What have we made for? Intentions and discipline. We have to prepare for the defence of this country because it's going to happen. We're going to war. You better understand it. And if you don't do anything with the politicians and get somebody in there with a fire in the belly, you're in trouble. And we have to sort out our tax system. We have to get our mineral wealth organised. We have to put it into our own manufacturing systems, give them premiums, give them things like that, so you can set them up. Tax the minerals that go over. We've got to do with the oligarchs who are behind this new world order. The new world order is a physical empire of the beast in the last stage of Revelation. Understand that it's
I'd just like to thank the Chamber for having this event tonight because we've had some really great thoughtful questions. No, easy to answer. I think that's a testament to the thought that's gone to people framing. So thank you. I really do appreciate that. Ask yourself, though, I think, when you think about relationships, ways to think about, first of all, is that person going to listen to you as an individual? Are they coming from a place where their focus is on providing a service to you in the community? Because whatever level of government we're in, that's what we need to do. We need to think about how we serve the people that are representatives. So look at this tonight, I think, I don't think that's the way to do it is a promotion again. But in all seriousness, who will actually listen to you, who will take your concerns seriously, and who will get some changes for you. Now, I can't speak as behalf in that regard, but I can say to you, go to the website for government and have a really good look at the policies and really do spend some time thinking about them. I say that because most people of both generation, we grow up a little or grow up later, and it's very hard for people to break outside of that and to consider voting for something that is not the party or of the side politics that your family was part of. So for that reason, I say look at everyone's policies and try and make a really good assessment of them, because that's the only way we will get change. And so the only way you get the person who wants to you know that you're voting for that person that will be aligned with your own real needs, not just views that you want to make through your life. I say that because I'm someone who changed from one form of voting to another over the years and realised that I had to stand over it. That's most of what I was saying. Other than that, thank you for the questions, thank you for the opportunity here, and I wish everybody well on the election and colleagues.
This election will be a choice, and there are a number of other questions that were just asked that are already being addressed in legislators. So there already is a small business and mental health package where small businesses become more and more important for small businesses. We have legislated already that places like supermarkets, petrol stations and pharmacies have to accept cash. They cannot say, sorry, we're going to do card here, because it's critically important. We also legislated that banks cannot close. The merger between Suncorp and ANZ, which has stopped a range of regional bank closures across the country. We've now had every other major bank sign on that they won't close any banks out until 2027, which is critically important for our communities. But there is a choice, and I have always said that our postcode shouldn't limit our opportunities in life. We are investing more money in public education in New South Wales. For the first time ever, we are going to fully fund public schools in New South Wales. That's an extra $4.8 billion a year going to public schools. We've said public health needs more money and there needs to be more money put into Medicare. So we have got the largest investment in public hospitals in history, $33 billion in the next year alone. We need more doctors and nurses. We've invested $660 million to grow the pipeline of GP workforce. So there are more Commonwealth supported places for medical students next year and the year after. There are more scholarships in place now for nurses and midwives to upskill. There are more scholarships in places now for those medical students to go into GP specialisation. We're waiving HECS fees for doctors and nurse practitioners to go out to rural and regional areas because that is a critical workforce shortage. We've also implemented free TAFE because we have the largest skills gap ever inherited from one government to the next. We've had 40,000 people undertake construction trades. We've had about 35,000 people going to aged care and about 30,000 people going to childcare places. The care economy is one that is growing, and it's growing now because we have implemented a 15% pay rise for aged care workers and childcare workers. We need to make sure we've got the human resources in those fields so that we can have more places available in our local communities. Healthcare is always going to be important, particularly in regional areas, which is why Medicare is so important to continue to fund. Freezing our Medicare rebates means GPs go out of business. We need to make sure that they get proper Medicare rebates, and that continues ongoing. In any given area, you need a member who is prepared to work with everyone to get things done. And over the 5 years that I've been a local member, I have worked with all levels of government across the political spectrum to get things done. That's what the community deserves, and that's what they need to have an member.
Okay, so our Senate at the moment, for our 12 senators that we have in New South Wales, we have 6 from the Coalition, 4 from the Labor Party and 2 from the Greens. Considering that the role of the Senate is to scrutinise policies and hold the government of the day, whoever they are, to account, I think that you can take the chance this year to vote for a 100% local independent who has taken no donations off anyone. I've ran a completely no-cost campaign, not because that was the easy way to do things, because I can tell you that wasn't. It is because I wanted to show people that I am against the big money that's in politics. I think it's what's ruined the trust that we used to have, if we really had that much in politicians, and that being willing to put myself forward and say, I'm just an average Australian, I've got no money, not wealthy, and I'm not well connected, I don't have a millionaire donor, and I don't have a party backing me. I'm 100% independent because I want to be transparent and genuine in Parliament and hold the major parties to account, because that's what will make our democracy and our country better. We also need a voice for regional and rural areas. The Senate is dominated by people from the city, and we have unique needs and they deserve to be represented. I have a Facebook page and a website, and if you like what you see and you're willing to share it, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm not advertising. If you have a million friends in Sydney, please tell them. That would really help my chances. So vote below the line. You have the number 1 to 12, but it just gives you a whole lot more choice. Give some independents and minor parties the go. I'm the only female independent candidate for New South Wales. So, and I'm from the area. So vote below the line, Kerry Harris. Thank you.
So you've heard a little bit about why I wanted to stand. I'm standing because I live in this community, I'm a part of this community, and I care about this community. When I stood for pre-selection, I stood on 5 platforms. You've heard of some of them tonight. Small business, aged care, two of them that are really, really important to me, and 2 that are really important to this area. Health, after the cost of living, which is the number 1 issue that is raised in over the last 4 months, health has literally become the second most important, followed by housing, affordability and supply. There are parts of Jindabyne where you take 9 weeks to see a doctor. If I'm elected, my first degree, I should have said, was nursing. I have a very invested background in health. And I also have a very invested background in equity of resourcing, and we just do not get equity of resourcing in rural, regional and remote areas. That is something that I've advocated for a long time in a number of different areas, about access to services and access to services that don't cost a bomb. So if I'm elected, you can guarantee that a priority issue for me in my first 100 days, as I've already done, is to get around to all of the local doctors, which I've already done, to ask them, what are the issues, what can we be doing? But we've got great policies around health. We came out very, very early last year with our policy around investing $400 million into getting more GPs to the bush, and that is certainly something that I'll be pursuing. It's a great policy. Mental health, our current state of play is we have 10 Medicare subsidised sessions. We would be putting that back up to 20. I can't tell you the number of parents that come up to me at local shows and markets that say to me what a game changer this would be. We're investing money in making sure that the existing bed spaces that we have here probably utilise mental health as a massive issue. Small business, I'm a small business owner, I'm very passionate about this. We want to make sure that we're getting trainees into the system, we're getting apprentices into the system, we're incentivising employers. We want to make sure that the young people here stay here and they take up a trade. When they take up a trade, it means that we've got them here and we've got them here to make sure that they're here to build the houses that we so desperately need. Can I just say, I just care about people and I love solving problems, and that is what you are going to get from me if you elect me at this election.
Thank you, candidates. And I know it's getting a bit late, but I did offer the audience because of several behaved. A number of questions. Who's got a question? Oh, lucky. Right, 3 questions. You can stay on. You do 3 questions.
Yeah, it's one. Well, actually, I want to make a suggestion. I've sent Olivia a whole heap of stuff this afternoon. Sorry for being late. Thank you for coming along, everyone. I've had a lot of really great ideas. I've seen a lot of passion with all the candidates, and I hope that whatever happens at the end of this election, you will all participate in our parliament going forward and keep sharing your ideas, no matter who wins. There's just a couple of things that I want to mention. Lloyd and I have been discussing. Lloyd, we're down at Dalgety, we're the hub of the Monero, and there's a couple of things that we've been discussing, and one is at the moment, and Wade touched on it, our resources are just being sent overseas and we're getting nothing out of it, particularly gas. I'd encourage you all to watch the Australia Institute's videos about this and about actually taxing our gas that's going out. We're hardly charging anything on it. It's just like there's a lot of promises that have to be paid for that everyone's been making. This is one way that we can do it. So please have a look at that. Please reform it. Whoever it is, get on board with this and fix this. And I'm sorry, Peter's idea is a good one about, bringing more gas to people and all the rest of it. But if we just tax it that's going out, then we can spend it on whatever programs that we want to, the other...
Look, you have a question?
Yeah, no, actually, yeah. My question is, please, who will support that? Who'll get on board that idea of actually... Yeah. Good. Okay, yeah. But on the foreign companies that are making money out of our tax, they're not the tax is on their profits. It's not on the gas that's going out. And they're not declaring profits, so they're not paying any tax.
So we've increased the petroleum resources rent tax across the country. It's bringing in about an extra $2.5 billion a year.
Not enough.
The big problem you will get is the scare campaigns run by the big miners and the big companies. They don't provide us sponsorship, but they do provide other parties sponsorship, which is the reason why sometimes that doesn't go as far as it should.
And sorry to interrupt. Well, thanks for that. And just a quick one on that. I hope that you can all, whoever gets in there, do something about these politicians that then go on to be lobbyists in the areas that they were actually ministers for. Like, please do something about that. Who supports that idea? Yeah, great. Okay, unanimous. Yep, Andrew? Yep, great, thanks. All right, just the...
Can I just give you a little tax lesson? Petroleum resources rent tax has been low. We've lifted it, but you're allowed to offset your petroleum resources rent tax liabilities by claiming your exploration costs.
Yes.
It's getting more expensive to explore, so it's a snake chasing its tail.
Yeah.
We can put the PRRT up, but then we need to keep exploring, and that gets more expensive. It's not really the solution that we're going to rely on.
Right, thanks, Andy. No, I'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot. Ruben? You're next.
Thanks, Olivier. Christy, I'm feeling a bit depressed because I think that Albo's going to get back in, but I'm feeling a bit encouraged because I can see a joint ticket with you and Taylor is going to be a winner. So
I'm not sure that's ever going to happen.
But my question really is, can you see structurally a way of improving the amount of money coming for roads in our areas, because I can see in an area where there's 22,000 people, an area that's the same size almost as Wales, we can't tax people enough, we can't rate people enough. There must be a structural way of getting better roads for our area. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so I talked about roads to recovery before. It's an automatic allocation that goes to every council across the country. We're doubling that, so your council, for example, gets an extra $6.6 million over the next funding period, bringing it up to about $15 million. Now that's never going to be enough to maintain all of the roads, but there is a section of the financial assistance grants which is allocated to roads. Then you've got roads to recovery. Then we've got road black spot programs which councils can apply for and get work done. Then we've got a range of road safety programs, and Andrew will talk about the widened centre lines and the guardrails. That's road safety. That's one particular program. There's $50 million coming to road safety projects across Eden now at this point in time. Roads, though, are critically important, and the fuel excise, which was introduced many years ago by John Howard, was solely aimed at trying to make sure we had enough money to maintain our roads going forward. Even Barnaby Joyce says cutting fuel excise will only mean we spend less money on road maintenance across the country. Fuel excise funds road maintenance across the country. Structurally, there needs to be some significant changes to how local councils are funded. This isn't going to be something that is easy or done overnight, but communities are going to have to come to grips with what can be done in communities and what can't be done. And councils can't be everything to everyone. They have core functions that they need to concentrate on, and roads, bridges, culverts are essential to every local community. So councils need to understand that that is their core priority, to provide safe local roads for communities. State and federal governments need to make sure that we're contributing to local road maintenance, but also making sure that our state highways are up to the mark. They clearly have not been, and not enough money has been invested in our state highway network over a period of time.
Are you watching? Please do not give us any more money for roads. Who remembers Polo Flat Road? You drove down Polo Flat Road, the road stuck to your wheels. Please don't give our council any more money for roads until we fix our council. We are building guardrails, and I joke with my kids, is that so that we can just bump between them as we drive down the Monero Highway? We need overtaking lanes, and we're getting gutters and guardrails. I'll be serious now, one of the really big problems is we keep chasing performance improvement increases in our trucks. So when I started driving trucks 30-something years ago, they were prime movers, 42-tonne payloads. Now you can have 60-tonne payloads because you've got double the tonnage or triple the tonnage with one driver. You've now got semi-trailers with 2 semi-trailers on them on the same bitumen surface that we put in the 1950s when trucks only carried 15 tonnes. The problem is we have allowed governments, state and federal, to keep increasing the weight of the trucks, but we haven't increased the strength of the pavement. This is the problem.
Andrew, we'll just place the next question.
There's another willing punter.
I'm a local business person in the area, and I just like to say how wonderful it is to actually live with democracy. And I think it's a fabulous thing that everybody has to do. And it's wonderful that all these candidates have actually come on board and told us all your ideas and your hopes and dreams.
Turn to your mouth.
Go better? Okay. I think it's fabulous. I'd also like to think that this democracy that we have is continue. There's been some great points brought up this evening. A major one that I had, and speaking of major, I'd like to acknowledge Major Wade, your contribution of families to defence in our country, was the main thing that I see going on in geopolitical instability in the world at the moment is the fact that we've had foreign investors attacking and spying on our country recently. I think nothing matters unless we put our fingers out and seriously do something about the defence of this country. I think basic training is a gift, and it's still needed, as we said. I truly believe that the main duty of the Prime Minister of our country, first and foremost, is the defence of our nation. And I do not think that this has been taken on board. I don't think that this has been taken on board. It is the defence of our nation. I believe that this is the number one priority that we have in this country at this time, because nothing else will matter. Nothing that you guys have said or promised or you hope to do, nothing else matters if we don't seriously go on board with this. Economic management and security of the nation, and we cannot have a secure nation unless we also have proper manufacturing. To be competitive in manufacturing, we've got to have cheap energy. Now, how we do this is a number of things that have been brought up before this, but we're being priced out of manufacturing. We cannot compete with slave labour in different countries that are building new coal-fired power stations every week. I think the whole country has got to wake up, and our kids need to have pride in their country. We need more patriotic lessons in school. Government, I just can see it all going downhill unless we get serious about defence of our nation, manufacturing and cheap energy, because it's all going to go to shit if we don't take this on board.
Absolutely agree with that. I think it's a great comment, fantastic comment. You've hit the nail on the head. We are a resource-rich country, extremely resource-rich. But for some godforsaken reason, well, we know why, but we're poor. We have 3.5 million people living in poverty. We have costs that are just exorbitant. Power, as you say, it's insanity. And window dressing is not going to fix it. We need to get proper profits from our resources so that we can have affluence in our society. And we do need to have a proper defence system. We need to have manufacturing. We have the ability, we have the resources. Wade's Trumpet of Patriots are talking about a $15 a tonne levy on iron ore going to coal outside of it. And look, that's a great idea. We need to maximise our returns on our resources. The gas, export gas, we're getting diddly nothing for it. It's crazy. We need to be maximising it. They say, oh, we can't afford to pay that, we won't do it. Well, yeah, okay, test them out. See how far we can test them out. China relies heavily on our coal. So, absolutely, this is a big moment. This is a watershed moment for this country. If we don't do it now, if we just accept this window dressing, you know what you're going to get.
Thanks, Fraser. You could short if we could, because everyone's getting tired. I know I am. Give it 30 seconds.
I think you should be chair up here with us. He's right. What Fraser says is correct. We have to put somebody in there with enough guts to do the job. Tell them and expose the lot of it. And you won't get it. You pay peanuts. You've got to get them in there with a fire in their belly to sort these people out. We only have this chance. This is the one chance you've got, because we're going to war, and if you don't fix it, you're going into captivity. Right? And I don't think we understand that yet. We're about to be attacked, and we're have to defend ourselves. The US has finally worked it out. They understand. They voted in Trump, and the reason they voted him in because of the corruption in the swamp. They're cleaning it out now, and we have to clean it out here. And they are cleaning it out, about to have a revolution in Britain, if you haven't followed it, and in Europe. It's going right, and there will be a new empire coming out of the people in the north. And the biblical structure says they will occupy the Middle East in the near future. Thank you.
I think Joe just wants to say something in the ending. I don't even know what the question was.
I can definitely keep it to 15 seconds. This is about defence, national security.
Do you believe the Prime Minister's first duty is the defence of our country?
It is to, yes, I do, 100% keeping Australians safe, and you would have seen the announcement we made today. This is a very, very high priority. Number one, I agree with you.
A question, right from the statement.
This is a short, sharp question to all the candidates, and it's a rural issue, and it's about the minimum lot size for homes. Most of the people I speak to who are homeless cannot build because of the cost of houses. If the current minimum lot size was reduced, which most of the rural areas here are 300 acres, and you can't easily reduce it down to a small lot size, say 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 acres, without, well, it just does not happen because it's against state laws to allow building. Who would push for reducing that? That would enable better affordability for people who do not have the resources to buy houses at their present massive cost. Show of hands.
Well, can I just say that there are very good, look, there's some very good cases can be made for reducing lot sizes. How big those lot sizes would be, of course, would be a matter for debate, and particularly though in prime rural land, and that's always been an issue about how much agricultural land you use in a rural area for housing versus how much you preserve for rural activity. So I think it's worth looking at, and I know there are a lot of people in this region, for example, who are frustrated because, for example, they can't put a house on their own property so their kids can get a property. I see there are a lot of inequities there, and that's really worth visiting, but it has to be, we have to keep in mind that there are also agricultural requirements for the community, and so it has to be in balance.
It's not agricultural, it's greens. It's not agricultural problems, they're green problems in relation to reduction on a lot, big lot, or a small legacy lot, 2 or 3, 4, 5, 10 acres. You can't get approval.
There's probably a statement or a local question, but through the candidates are going to travel a fair distance back home again. So we've just got one question left.
Okay, this is a question. Joe, to elect which this very much relates to, but it's on a very personal level regarding the escalating domestic violence, family abuse situation in this country, which affects every community, and seemingly it is getting more and more out of control. Nothing is, in my opinion, being done about it. I haven't heard what the major parties are planning to do to roll back that issue. I would love to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, domestic and family violence is growing across our communities, and we can see that with the numbers of women that have been killed by a current or former intimate partner. We put out a plan to end domestic violence within a decade, and it's going to be incumbent upon every level of government to get involved in this. We brought together National Cabinet and made it a priority of every state and territory to do more. So there's been reforming bail laws in New South Wales, for example, after the death of a woman in Western New South Wales. We are contributing more dollars now than ever before in emergency accommodation and transitional accommodation for women and children fleeing domestic violence. But there is more work that has to be done here, and it is a combination of federal and state laws, because a range of our state laws are not being implemented implemented properly when it comes to the court system, and it is our ADO and our DVO applications don't work effectively enough to protect women and children in particular. But there is I think, a growing sense of talking about this as a mainstream issue. Domestic violence and mental health are now mainstream issues across our community because we are talking about them more. In Cooma, for example, we've spent $1.2 million on 6 units for women and children fleeing domestic violence, which will be completed next month. In Queanbeyan, we've just spent over $4 million for 12 units for women over the age of 55 at risk of homelessness. That is now the fastest growing cohort of homelessness. But it is going to require significant inputs into our bail laws and into making sure that our judges are putting away the people the first time our police are putting them in front of them.
I totally agree that this is a situation that has not really featured in the election campaign so far. And there is one thing that, as a teacher, that I can see is this is a long-term solution. Like, obviously, we need emergency solutions because it is an emergency situation. Long-term, I think we need more social emotional intelligence education in our schools from kindergarten to year 12. As a teacher, I see, like, I work at St. Pat's and we do put a fair bit of effort into our pastoral care. It does really make a difference, but we need that right across our nation. Just teaching people how to be in relationships, how to have healthy relationships, how to respect each other, and how to manage their emotions and how to have authentic power, not like a fake kind of power. And I think that that would make a big difference, and I would really like to advocate for that because I just don't think that we have like a long-term solution to this problem. We don't have a short-term one either, but it would be good if we could think long-term.
I really want to thank you for that question. I felt some emotion there and you made me a bit teary. That's a very personal issue for me, and I have to always preface that with, I love my husband and he has done nothing. But this for me is about investing locally. You made a good point, investing in education. I've been advocating heavily for the resourcing of some of our local organisations to run men's change behaviour programs. And can I just mention one thing about that program? There's a really great question they ask in this, and that is, if you're angry at work, do you go and, punch your boss in the nose and have a bit of a crack? They're like, no. Why? Oh, because I get the sack. So why is it okay for you to do that at home? I started a post on Easter Sunday night to talk about the 3 women that have lost their life in the last week. And I stopped. I stopped because it was Easter Sunday. But I can tell you, if I'm elected, it is a very real and personal issue for me, and I think education is a big part of it. We've committed to, undertaking, obviously this is as part of a state issue as well, but undertaking good reform in the bail area. As a lawyer, I despair sometimes when I see magistrates letting people off breach after breach, and I think we need to really be looking at how we appoint our magistrates as well.
Thanks. I've been promised this is going to be a very quick question. If I can ask the candidates to make a very brief answer.
This question only requires like a 1-sentence answer from the candidates. So the question is, if you got elected and you were in a position to accomplish one thing in the term ahead, what is your top priority? And what would you choose to push through in 1 sentence? And probably the Greens candidate doesn't need to answer because he won't know his colleagues' answer. But
Health and getting more doctors to the bush.
Yeah, healthcare is the biggest one, making sure that we're resourcing our hospitals more appropriately.
This is
I'd like to turn around the globalist agenda and make people aware of what's going on and bring back our sovereignty to our country.
I'd like to see some more truth. I'd fight for truth. Just tell us the truth and we'll either accept it or deal with it. And if I can just add a small piece to the previous question, I'm going to stand up for the men that suffer in domestic violence. There's so much conversation, and it's not making light of women, but it's a two-way street. All relationships are two-way streets, and everything is geared between women's shelters and women's refuges. Where are the men's shelters? Where are the men's refuges? There are a lot of men that suffer terrible relationships. And some of those men do unspeakable things because they don't have anywhere to go to get help. Let's not forget the men.
On conclusion of this evening, I'd like to thank the candidates for making the effort and time to come down here. I know some of you have travelled long distances. I know that you've got to travel more long distances to get home, so thank you very much. But probably my biggest thank comes to the audience, not only for being very well behaved, but also for partaking in our democracy. Because while we have a government, while we have candidates coming up every 3 years, 4 years for local, federal and state government, it's your participation that makes our democracy work. So give yourself a pat on the back. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for the candidates and see you on the 3rd of May.